Good morning and welcome back to another episode of The Extra Point here on KLAA. And what a week one we've had in the NFL. I tell you, the NCAA football scene is getting hotter and hotter. But let's go ahead and do an extra point recap of week one in the NFL. I tell you what, that Jacksonville-Houston game was pretty exciting. There's a lot of toxic things still going on in Houston. But I tell you what, I don't think none of us expected what we saw out of Houston.
No, I don't think anyone did either. If anything, I think the Houston Texans felt like they've been disrespected since the start of the season with the Watson story being a big distraction. They came out and made a statement week one.
They definitely did. And then we had the Eagles versus the Falcons. I tell you what, Jalen Hurts came out and proved that, hey, I am the starting quarterback. They put a hurting on the Falcons 32-6. As much as we want to look at Jalen Hurts, we probably should be looking at Matt Ryan. And later in the episode, we're going to talk about Matt Ryan and really start looking at evaluating his performance. Then you had the Bengals and the Vikings. What an exciting game. The Bengals took that one 27-24. What do you guys think about that game?
Yeah, the player who stood out for me was Jamar Chase. All throughout preseason, he was a guy who people were picking on because of the drop balls. But he had 6 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. I think he played great, and he was definitely a highlight for me.
Yeah, and then the way they won the game in overtime, too. Having the rookie 5th-round draft pick coming in and nailing that field goal in overtime where the Bengals really struggled in the kicking game the last few years. Nice statement win, first game back with fans. And just another interesting little stat, in the entire Bengals history, they have never once scored a touchdown in overtime.
Go figure. But guess what? They didn't need a touchdown. They got the field goal, 27-24, Bengals over the Vikings. Then you had the Chargers against the Washington football team. The Chargers pulled that one out, 20-16. Justin Herbert picked up right where he left off as the rookie of the year. That guy was gunning out there, and he was slinging that ball. And it definitely shows that he has a relationship with Keenan Allen. I expect a lot of great things out of that Chargers team. Now, let's get into some deeper games. The Saints versus Green Bay. Saints pulled that one off 38-3. We actually got even a chance to see a East-West Shrine Bowl member, Jawan Johnson, out there at the tight end position, pulling down 2 touchdowns. And we were there at the East-West Shrine Bowl. We were there to evaluate him, and it was great to see him on the field doing those things. But the highlight, Jameson Winston, going out there and putting the Saints on his shoulders and making a game of it. And flip side of that coin is the horrible play for the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers. And I'm sorry for the Green Bay fans that you traveled from Green Bay all the way down south to see your team only kick a field goal.
Well, Aaron Rodgers was definitely trying to force the ball to Devontae Adams. You could just tell there was some rust out there on that offense. And then, obviously, the defense didn't step up either. Jameis Winston, the big question with him all offseason was who's going to fill the shoes of Drew Brees? He filled them pretty well in week one. Had 5 touchdown passes on 14 completions, made NFL history with that stat line.
Yeah, I think it showed the Packers are still wrapped up in the offseason. I think the rumors and everything with Aaron Rodgers took its toll on that team. I think it showed. They came out flat. And let's talk about Jameis Winston, like Jeremy said. He came out, he proved it. He had a great game, threw some dimes. He looked great. I think that year really benefited him behind Drew Brees. And he's looking like he's the real deal this year.
Hey, I agree with all of that for sure. Then you got the Rams and the Bears. What an exciting game. All eyes was on Matt Stafford. And was he going to be the new quarterback that the Rams needed to push them over the top? Look, I tell you, that guy was slinging the deep ball down there. They ended up winning the game 34-14. Then you had a dynamic on the Bears side of the ball, right? You definitely had a little bit of, I won't call it controversy because it's not controversy. I will say they tried to uniquely utilize the quarterback tandem out there. Did you guys buy into the utilization of both quarterbacks with the Chicago Bears?
No, I didn't. Yeah, Justin Fields got on to play for, a handful of snaps. Obviously, his first snap was the touchdown run the end zone. I think you could see him down there more often than not just because of his mobility. Gives the run game a different dynamic. But, I mean, I think it's Dalton's show to lose until he inevitably loses it at some point this year, because they're going to put Fields out there at some point.
Yeah, I wasn't interested at all. Just like Jeremy said, I thought it was pretty bland. I mean, we saw what Andy Dalton was when he had the opportunity last year in Dallas. He had a great offense around him, a pretty good team. They had a chance to make the playoffs, and he did nothing with that opportunity. I think Justin Fields should have this job right now. It should be his year to grow, to learn. I think the best experience is, playing and going through the rough times. And, I want to see Justin Fields in there as soon as possible.
You know, one of the sadder things for a veteran quarterback, especially being with a new team, is the mere fact that there was really no expectation for this guy really going in. So, yeah, to your guys' point, just go ahead and give the job to Fields. Let him start growing with that team. Let the maturation process start now, not later. And then you had the Browns versus the Chiefs. That game was the mega game that everybody was looking forward to. Two potential Super Bowl bound teams. In the very first couple of quarters, I would say and argue the Browns had the Chiefs on the ropes.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. They were running the ball fantastically. Chubb was averaging 4 yards a carry, had 2 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt came in, had some good action and relief. He also got a touchdown. But I think the thing that really hurt Cleveland is they did Cleveland-like things to end up losing that game.
Now, what do you mean by that, Jeremy? Because you've made that comment several times now. What do you mean by Cleveland-like things?
So everyone knows the history of the Browns. Now, I understand they're on a different path, but in the fourth quarter, it looked like the team that used to make mistakes religiously was out there making those mistakes. You know, it just felt like the game had turned the tide in the fourth quarter. That's what I mean by Cleveland did Cleveland-like things to lose the game. You know, dropping the punt when they're up. You know, I mean, that was a pivotal turning point in this game that turned the Chiefs to full throttle in the fourth quarter that eventually went on to win that game by, I think it was 33-29.
That game set the tone for the rest of the season for both of those ball clubs. Very much looking forward to seeing what they do with the rest of the season. Now, we cannot go any further, Justice, without talking about the game that ended week 1 and had everybody at home on the edge of their seats, and that is the Baltimore Ravens and the Las Vegas Raiders. And I tell you what, that 33-27 win was extremely, extremely exciting. What's your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, just like you said, Roland, that was an amazing game. It was a great Monday night game. It's an early candidate for Game of the Year in Week 1. It was the perfect way to end Week 1. I think Derek Carr showed a lot. The last 2 drives, he showed that he's a good quarterback, that he can be a quarterback that carries a team into the playoffs. And a lot of people are down on this kid. And I think he's been hated on a little bit too much. You know, they haven't done the most to get weapons around him. Henry Ruggs hasn't really lived up to expectations yet. Hunter Renfrow is a nice piece, but he's not number 1. So I like this kid Carr. I like Derek Carr. I think he's a good quarterback, and I think he deserves more respect on his name.
Well, Justice, the other thing I'll say there is last night the Raiders had a defense. That's the one thing that's been missing from the Raiders here for several years. They had a top 10 offense last year. They had a total sieve as a defense. But last night the Raiders were getting pressure with 4. Their offseason acquisitions of Yannick Ngakoue at defensive end, Denzel Perryman, and I'm forgetting their other big key acquisition this offseason. Those guys got in there and made big plays. Now the Raiders have 2 very good pass rushers in Yannick Ngakoue and Max Crosby. They were giving Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offensive line fits last night.
Hey, I'm with you, and I tell you what, they need to go ahead and give Crosby a nickname right now. Call him Mad Max, Triple Max, whatever max you want to, max to the 10th degree, whatever nickname you want to give this guy, because he played phenomenal ball. He got after the Ravens quarterback quickly. So I tell you what, I believe that the Raiders set the tone. Now, to me, it's about play calling. It is definitely about play calling in the hopes to putting the offensive weapons in the right place at the right time. What a great recap of week 1. Now, out there in the college land, not a whole lot happened, but boy, there was one major upset, and that was Oregon getting the win over Ohio State, 35-28. What type of impact do you think that win has on the standings, at least right now?
Yeah, I think it has a major impact. I think Ohio State, they're top 5 in the country. They're supposed to be one of those big teams that are an automatic playoff contender each year. But I want to say this: Justin Fields just doesn't grow on trees. They have to plan with life without him. I think C.J. Stroud, he still has some growth left in him. I think Oregon really just shined the most this past week. C.J. Verdell, that run game they had, the other kid die out of the backfield. They had a plan for this game. They ran it down their throats. And, man, those Ohio State linebackers, I don't know where they were at, but they could not hang with this Oregon run attack. They need to hang up their pads and try out for the chess club or something, because they could not handle this Oregon run game, and it was something to watch.
Hey, we're not dissing the chess club. We like the chess club here on the Extra Point. So what'd you say, Jeremy?
I think that's a little harsh, Justice, a little too far, but because, those kids are talented. But, yeah, Oregon had a great game plan. They had nothing on defense that solved the problem that the Oregon offense was giving them. Spencer Brown played great at quarterback. He was poised. He delivered the ball where it was supposed to go. He didn't make mistakes. And just Ohio State's defense, they've got to change. Ryan Day even came out earlier this week and said, we have got to make adjustments, because so far through 2 games, their defense looks like the unit that is going to hold this team back from going far. Minnesota ran the ball all over them. Oregon ran the ball over them. This is a problem going forward, and Ryan Day is going to have to get the problem corrected.
Hey, that is for sure. Now, I don't want to really jump and get deep into this game, but I just want to highlight it for all the fans out there, that for those of you who are out there on the Notre Dame bandwagon, I am with you. I think Notre Dame is a phenomenal organization. I think they got a lot of talented players. My only problem with this week's game is that they were playing Toledo. And no one is talking about it, because sometimes in the game of football, a W is a W, a win is a win. But sometimes you got to question the quality of the win. And Notre Dame won that game 32-29. Not a lot of people talking about that, but you might want to go back out there and do your research, because I'm kind of shocked that Toledo was allowed to put up 29 points on Notre Dame. Now, with all of that being said, going back to the NFL, look, we already recapped a lot of great games out there. And I tell you, one of the things I was very impressed with is a lot of first rounders came out to play football. They came out to showcase that they are ready to take on the responsibility of being NFL players. However, on the veteran front, in the veteran clubhouse, to say, there is one player I am very much questioning right now, and that is the play of Matt Ryan. I'm sorry, everyone out there listening into the Extra Point, but ever since the Atlanta Falcons lost the Super Bowl to the actual Patriots, I don't think Matt Ryan has been the same. He has not played the same. I honestly don't think he is the right fit anymore for the Atlanta Falcons. And Atlanta Falcons may want to sit down, evaluate his performance, and make a decision whether or not they should move on from him. I don't know. I'm opening that can of worms, guys. What do you guys think about Matt Ryan?
Well, I think one thing that I thought a lot of people thought this offseason was, like you said, Atlanta has never gotten over that Super Bowl hangover. The biggest comeback win in probably all of football, period, because it was in the Super Bowl. It's so demoralizing, that type of loss. I felt like they had the option this offseason to hit the reset button. They let go of all their coaches. They hired Arthur Smith. We got 2 new coordinators in there. It made kind of sense, I felt, to move on from Matt Ryan this offseason. And they had a chance to do that in the draft with a quarterback we've already briefly mentioned, Justin Fields. He was available at the number 4 pick. they had a chance to rewrite this franchise by bringing in a quarterback like Justin Fields. Don't get me wrong, I think Kyle Pitts will be a fantastic player. But if there was ever a time to reset the button, I felt like it was this offseason with a new coaching staff coming in and a franchise quarterback sitting there at pick 4 in Justin Fields.
Yeah, don't worry, Matt Ryan. I'm going to dive into the deep end and save you here.
Wow, we got to save her. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't agree with you guys on this topic, and I'll tell you why. I have been emphatic about this point since the draft and since people were screaming, fans were screaming for the Falcons to draft a quarterback. And I get it. He's up in age, a new regime, new head coach. If there was any time to hit the reset button, it was this year. But let me tell you this. Matt Ryan is not the problem of this team. He has not been the problem since the Super Bowl. He has not been the problem in years. As a matter of fact, Matt Ryan hasn't thrown less than 4,000 yards in 10 years. Since 2010 was the last time he threw under 4,000 yards. He is not the problem for this team. He has been as consistent as it comes when it comes to being a quarterback. The problem has always been this defense. He's not the one that gave up a 31-3 lead. That was the defense. He put up 31 points. Well, 24 because they had a pick 6. He put up the points. He did what he had to do, and he is not the problem of this team. It's been the defense. I get it. They could have hit the reset button. I wouldn't have been mad if they had hit the reset button, but I just want to say Matt Ryan is not the problem for this team.
Well, I definitely hear you loud and clear on that one, Justice. So here on the extra point, we're just going to say we will agree to disagree on the episode here of the extra point because Matty Ice is not ice anymore. And if he is ice, he's definitely frozen over because it is about time for him maybe to get a fresh start with a new team, kind of like Matt Stafford. We can probably make the same argument for Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford is a gunslinger. In Detroit, he did phenomenal work with the ball, but he never could take Detroit over the hump. And I think here with Matty Ice, he just right now is still kind of, the entire organization is still kind of hung in that slump. I definitely agree with you. I think the defense needs some serious rework there, especially that front seven. I think they need to bring in some bigger, quicker edge rushers. But when it's all said and done, I think for Matt Ryan's career, reset button, not just for the Atlanta Falcons, but also for his career. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to The Extra Point here on KLAA, and we've been going through a slew of different topics, not just from week 1 recap, but also looking at the college upset with Oregon and Ohio State. And we've been recently talking about evaluating Matt Ryan's performance with another awful loss with the Atlanta Falcons, with the Eagles beating them 32-6. Now, with that being said, I want to jump on a topic that I had on my mind from the moment I actually saw it take place. And this is the ejection of Ronnie Harrison. He was the safety for the Browns that got ejected from the games with the Chiefs for basically shoving a coach. When you look at the film, ladies and gentlemen, I want all of you listening out there, go back and look at that film yourself. Evaluate that film yourself and tell me, do you believe he should have been ejected from the game? He did not throw the first punch. The coach did. Whether it was a soft shove, whether it was an elbow, whether it was a fist, whatever have you, the coach made the first engagement. He reacted. He's the one who got ejected. Now, should he have been ejected from the game? And more importantly, should the coach be held accountable for putting his hand on a player?
Well, honestly, I think, this is a big story because it happened so early in the game. You took a piece away from the Cleveland defense very early in the first quarter. They had just gone up 8-0. If you, like you said, go back and look at the tape, form your own opinion here. But when I looked at it, I saw a coach trying to get a player off of Edwards-Helaire who was on the ground. It wasn't malicious what Harrison did. He lost his balance. He ended up tapping him right in the midsection twice. and the coach was like pushing him off. It wasn't a hard shove. It wasn't malicious. But then Ronnie Harrison took exception to that and threw a nice little, palm right in the face. And that's where it escalated. And I think he should have been ejected because the defensive line coach for the Chiefs, it was not a malicious hit. Ronnie Harrison was just frustrated because he, felt like he was the exception to this. But you can't throw a punch or a palm to someone in the face. That's the number one thing. Get you ejected on the field. You do that to an NFL player. And now we've learned it's, if you do that to a coach on the sideline, it's going to happen too.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Jeremy. I think he should have been ejected. I agree with Roland. I don't think the stomp on Edwards-Helaire's chest was intentional. I think it was a crowded area, and he kind of got pushed back into Hilaire. But I think, like you said, Jeremy, the coach's shove, it wasn't really a shove. It was more of to create space, to get off my player. Like, the play is over. He didn't really shove him. It was just kind of a forearm to create space.
Really? That's how we're going to define this one, Justice? We're going to get political here, and we're going to say that politically he just created space.
Yeah, it wasn't a shove. It wasn't anything near what Harrison did to the coach. You can't put your hands on a coach. That's where the line's drawn. I think it was out of line, and I don't think he should be fined or anything like that. But I think the ejection was warranted.
Okay, all right, so what I'm hearing here is, hey, the ejection was warranted here. I would make the counter argument that he should have not been ejected. What I don't like about the game is when, look, things get heated on the sideline, and I get it. Coaches are trying to protect players. Players take exception to coaches putting their hands on them. So if I'm a referee, I'm calling unsportsmanlike conduct. I'm clearing the sideline, and I'm letting things get back to normal. Yes, I get the push back on the coach was excessive. But let's not forget, the coach put his hand also on the player. So let's not forget that piece of the puzzle.
I agree with you, Roland, in that sense. The coach probably should have not, the word here I'm going to use is escalated the situation. But I think the difference is when you go for someone's face and head area, that's a punch. That's a direct hit. As where, I think if he would have hit him in the chest, and pushed him back on the chest, I immediately think it would have been unsportsmanlike conduct and not the, punch that, that's what they're calling it, even though it wasn't as much of a punch. I think that's the difference, though. It looks like he was going for the head there, and he struck the head area. If he would have pushed him and got him in the chest, I think he would have stayed in the game, just, taking the 15-yard penalty.
Well, I tell you what, fireworks, right? We ended the week one with fireworks of play between the Ravens and the Raiders. We had a little fireworks with the Browns and the Chiefs. And then, of course, we had a little bit of fireworks there with a player ejection. So week one has lived up to the hype, especially with all the fans being back in the stadium. Now, here we go. We're getting ready to embark on week two. Fellas, what are your thoughts here? What are some games that you're looking forward to seeing? I know for myself, I'm looking forward to seeing the Raiders coming off that phenomenal win going up against the Steelers. Look, the Steelers didn't look great going up against the Buffalo Bills, but they made a game of it, and they end up winning the game. So I think that one definitely defensively should be a great game. What's some games that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I'll go with the Jets versus the Patriots. You got two rookie quarterbacks, Zach Wilson versus Mac Jones. I think that's an instant headline right there. The Jets, I think they got punched in the mouth a little bit against Carolina this past week. I think Zach Wilson, he's behind a pretty poor offensive line right now, so there's going to be growing pains. Mac Jones, he looked pretty good as well, but he has some growing pains as well. So this is going to be interesting to see who comes out on top. I'm really interested to see how Zach Wilson performs against Bill Belichick's defense. The last time we saw Sam Darnold against the Patriots, I think he threw like 6 picks, and he was seeing ghosts. So I think, can Zach Wilson overcome that and play a little bit better and give the city some hope?
Yeah, a game I'm looking forward to is the Cowboys traveling to LA to take on the Chargers. Chargers had a very impressive week one win against a good defense in Washington. Justin Herbert looked very good. And then a team we talked about a lot last week, the Cowboys looked very good against Tampa Bay. They just couldn't end up pulling out the win there. But that offense is rolling. Dak Prescott, he is right where he left off, coming off that ankle injury in Week 5. That offense should be a lot of fun to watch. This should be a high-scoring game. Two great offenses going at it. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Week 1 lived up to the hype. Let's see if Week 2 lives up to the hype also. A lot of great games out there. There's a lot of great college games that are going on out there also. So let's keep an eye on definitely Ohio State, see how they bounce back. Let's keep an eye on Notre Dame, see how they continue to evolve as a team. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to The Extra Point here on KLAA, and I tell you what, football is roaring, the fans are roaring, and you are getting it all here on The Extra Point. We'll see you next week.